Hi, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another video, and this is the last of the requests for Carson. Thank you so much for that. For those interested, requesting any type of videos, whether it be a topic, tier list, ranking, review, re-review, thought streams, commentaries, video game playthroughs, whatever the case may be, feel free to send it. I'll get to it as soon as I possibly can. For those who sent them, thank you. I do appreciate it. And this is for Forbidden Planet, which is a film I'd heard of for the longest time in terms of, I remember the poster of the film and Robbie the robot, which I know it's a different robot from Lost in Space, but I think it's the same voice actor. But I remember back in the day, are they the same robot? But no, they're different robots. But always wondering, curious, intrigued about the film because it has such a reputation of being one of the seminal sci-fi films of its day. And first and foremost, this is a very good-looking movie. I think a lot of this stuff still holds up, as it still looks pretty damn good. The environment of the planet itself, and the landscape, and the skies, sometimes the green skies, when the crew lands, and the way the ship looks, and the way Robbie the robot moves around, and the design of it. When this guy who they find on the planet, Dr. Morbius, shows them around, he'll show the captain sort of the big machinery that's a part of this planet from this race that was there long ago, and you see the vast machines that are powering up this stuff. There's a creature that's invisible. There's a reason why it's invisible, which I'll get to and a little bit later. That's kind of interesting bits of animation because they shoot at it. You can see a bit of its form. So it's a very good looking film. I gotta say that. This is definitely a film that you think of 1950s sci-fi films. You think of films where the effects looked a bit goofy, silly. The Blob from the 50s comes to mind. Other 50s where it's vegetables or whatever the hell trying to kill people. And the effects are the best. Maybe they have a charm to them and camp. But this, nothing about this I really found campy or silly. So the fact that the studio definitely gave this some legitimacy budget-wise definitely gives it a bit of thought to the viewer to take what's going on a bit more serious. And then the actors take their roles fairly serious as well. As much as I heard about the film, as in the poster of Robbie, I never knew that this starred Leslie Nielsen, who's playing kind of a version of Captain Kirk, really, like before Captain Kirk. And that was very interesting because I always knew of Leslie Nielsen for comedy, the Naked Gun films. He was in Mr. Magoo and Wrongfully Accused and Spy Hard and Airplane. Surely can't be serious. I am serious, and don't call me Shirley. Because I love Airplane and the Naked Gun, and yes, I know there's a new one. I'm not going to get into that because we're talking about this. But I like Leslie Nielsen. Now, I knew he was a serious actor before. He had done a film called, I think, Day of the Animals, and I think he fights a bear or something in that. But yeah, I never knew he was in this, so because I'm watching going, is that who the hell I think it is? Oh shit, and I'm looking up the info. It is Leslie Nielsen. So that was cool. That was kind of a nice surprise. And it's funny, it's him and this doctor and their rapport reminds me a little bit of Captain Kirk and Dr. McCoy, although that they did a bit more with humor and chemistry. So Star Trek did it better, but it's still kind of cool. And some of the stuff that they did that was not common at the time. For example, I believe this was the first or one of the first films where your characters are in a human-made starship. Before the Starship Enterprise and all that stuff, these characters was in this. I think it's also one of the early films to have a full electronic score, which definitely gave it an alien, not the movie Alien, but like a not normal vibe, which wasn't too bad, too shabby. But I mean, the plot of the film is Leslie Nielsen and his crew, they're on a mission, kind of like a rescue mission, just to look at this planet, and there was this ship that was there, and there's been no contact, and they figure out what's going on. They land on the ship, and they admire the environment, and there's Leslie, there's a cook, there's some other people, there's the doctor, and the planet is called Altair 4, and they see this bit of dust coming towards their way, and it's a robot named Robbie the robot driving this vehicle, and says, hey, my master wants to see you, talk to you. And it's Dr. Morbius, one of the only survivors. Him and his daughter are the only people left on the planet. You find out later what happened to the other people. And the rest of the film is kind of them trying to repair their ship. Something sneaks in, screws up some things, and Leslie's pissed about, wondering how this happened. You guys are supposed to be on guard. Of course, we're trying to find out later the thing is invisible. I will say, though, I didn't mind the film because of the stuff I mentioned, seeing Leslie in a serious role, the production value, the look of the film. It definitely gives you a bit of food for thought on its themes about the id and what that'll make sense later. It's not an action-packed movie. I wish there was more with the creature. I wish there was more of kind of the creature maybe hunting the crew, or close calls that the crew have with the creature. Because the creature isn't, yes, it's invisible, but its presence isn't really around a whole lot. And I kind of wish there was a bit more of it. Because the middle section is a lot of kind of either Leslie Nielsen falling for this girl, and I didn't really buy it. I didn't really buy, because it seems like after kind of 2-3 things, all of a sudden they're in love with each other. I know a lot of 50s movies did that type of stuff, but when you think about today's age, it's like, I don't know, you kind of wish there was a little bit more, or maybe a little bit more chemistry or something to all that. Although, I guess to be fair, Captain Kirk, there'll be an episode of a show and he'll get in bed with someone, so I guess to be... that's not really fair for me to play about that, but yet be fine with Star Trek doing it. But it's Captain Kirk. I mean, like, William Shatner has a bit of more of that charisma. And that's one thing Leslie Nielsen, it was interesting to see him, but I wish in retrospect they knew Leslie has such a sense of humor, and he could have had a little bit of that charisma like Captain Kirk has later on in Star Trek and the show, the movies. And he could have let that come out of him. He's very stern and straightforward. Like I say, it was cool to see Leslie in that different type of role. But yeah, just in retrospect, would have been nice again if they knew, hey, he got a sense of humor. He did show some charisma, like much later in Airplane, Naked Gun, especially Naked Gun, and just show a little bit of that. Maybe that would have helped with the love story bit. Or his conversation with Dr. Morbius, who's showing them these different things, like this thing that measures your intelligence, and how Dr. Morbius has trained his mind to be stronger, and that if you try to do this on your own, you could get screwed up, or you could get killed. Showing them the environments of the machinery. Definitely a bit of... some bits with Robbie the robot, like the cook wants more alcohol, and Robbie can create stuff. So Robbie knows what kind of alcohol it is, and it's like, do you want this amount? Golly, sure, yeah. And of course, later creates like 80 fucking bottles of, was it whiskey or something? Like 80 fucking bottles of it. There's a little bit of humor here and there. There's a bit where Leslie sees the cook and then kind of nods at the guy, and the guy takes like a metal thing and lifts the cook up and drives him away. I kind of wish there was a little bit more of that sense of humor. I think a 50s film that did that dialogue-wise very well was The Thing from Another World, the Howard Hawks. And kind of that bit of... You watch that film and the way the characters interact, and like the people are making fun of the captain because he's got a crush on this girl, and the guy's like, you know, trying to brush him off or tell him to knock her off, but in a warm, fun way, and they're still giving him crap about it. And you have that rapid fire dialogue that Howard Hawks is known for, although technically he didn't direct it, but his presence is very felt on it. I kind of wish there's a little bit of that within this. Because it is very much of the look of the film, the presentation of the film that I did enjoy. Now, it's directed by Fred M. Wilcox, who did Lassie Come Home, which had a very young Roddy McDowall from Fright Night, and Planet of the Apes as the kid. Lassie, Lassie. So, very different movie from what he would later do with this film. You definitely see influences. You do definitely see how people like Spielberg, James Cameron. There was a Turner Classic Movies thing you do find here on YouTube. Frank Darabont was a big fan of this film. Of course, we would go do the Shawshank Redemption stuff. Definitely a film that a lot of people... Like, when you saw this, like, you just imagine just the way things looked and the way it's presented that, you know, seemed rather impressive to younger generation. Again, I think just because of how much I heard about it, I was expecting a bit more in the middle to happen. Again, like more close calls with this creature, maybe a rising tension as the numbers of the crew dwindle and dwindle, and we're trying to fix this, and Morbius ain't talking. I thought there's probably a bit more of like a tension-fueled narrative. I would have liked to have seen that. Especially for a title like Forbidden Planet. Or maybe other creatures. Maybe there's wildlife. Maybe there's other wildlife of alien-type creatures that are like foxes and wolves and whatever on Earth, but kind of this planet's version of that. Would be cool. Just have a little bit more stuff happening. More stuff. Well, yeah, I guess there's just more stuff happening. Because, yeah, I don't think the love story is really the strongest point of the film. I'm trying to think of something I'm missing. Spoilers about what's going on. You find out that the race that was here before on this planet, they created this machine that they can create stuff from mere thought. But the catch-22 is, inadvertently, you could create a nightmare, or you could create a creature, your inner id, monstrous id, which even this god, Morbius, has done. He didn't realize it. He just felt it's a creature that killed the crew, and then few, including Leslie Nielsen, figure out that it's because... And when Leslie Nielsen is talking to Morbius about that, it does remind me of what I would see in Star Trek later on. Because I could totally see Captain Kirk telling someone and trying to get through them, and, you know, just not streaming, but just getting more and more assertive. And that, again, that was cool about seeing this. It is... Gene Roddenberry, I could see... I don't know if he ever admitted it or not, but he had to have been inspired by this film for Star Trek. He had to have. With how the crew and how they all have similar... Not similar to Star Trek, but amongst them, they have like a uniform, like his administration, and they're, you know, on a peaceful journey. But they still have stuff to protect themselves. And... Again, just the serious nature the captain. I did. This Star Trek had been inspired by this. And I was hoping Robbie the Robot was in it a bit more. Because he's the poster. Oh, granted, the poster makes it seem as if Robbie's the villain. I think that's what I thought it was going to be. Because like Robbie's tearing the woman. Is he going to turn evil, or is something's going to change? But no. Like I say, he's in a couple scenes here and there. Spoiler, I do like that when they leave, they brought Robbie the Robot with them, who's helping with the ship. I like that. I like they didn't leave him behind. Just, okay, he's just a machine. What does it matter? So, I don't know, just a little thing I liked. Which I know that, I guess I want to say costume, but that robot was used in other movies. I mean, he has a cameo in, was it Gremlins? Because Joe Dante's a fan of that stuff. When the father's on the phone, you see, like, in the back or around that area. I think this was in an episode of Lost in Space as one type of robot going against the Lost in Space robot. Again, I think they do have the same voice. I'm sure that design robot was used in other stuff. I am surprised there was never a sequel to this. Because it's like, okay, maybe you could involve a little bit humor with, Leslie Nielsen, and not comedy, but humor you would see in Star Trek from time to time. And and then now Robbie's part of the crew, and what other adventures they get into. Maybe have a little bit more action, a little bit more adventure. I think that's the thing for Forbidden Planet. I wish there was a bit more of an adventure aspect of them combing the planet, investigating the planet. There's all these little things, or maybe it's like a journey to get to where Morbius is, to get to that part of the planet. And there's danger, and there's times they have to defend themselves, or like I said, in the invisible creature, you don't really see much. Well, like I said, it's present, not really much in it. But I like the idea that this is subconscious hate and lust for destruction. This id creature. Again, when there are times where they're shooting at it and you see a bit of his form, I think that's done with the animation. Kind of reminds me of what you would see in, what was it, Supergirl, which had the invisible creature, and you see. So I did like the look of it. I thought it looked neat. And I didn't, just to see where Star Trek got a little bit of its inspiration from. Whether Gene Roddenberry admits it or not, I don't know if he ever did. And just to see Leslie Nielsen a different type of role, and takes itself a bit seriously with a higher production value than some films from the 50s. I would still say I enjoy the theme from Another World, because I thought the dialogue, the characters had a little bit more to them in that compared to this. And yet, I would have lessened the love story and more of the, again, either have different creatures of the environment, the landscape, or more of this creature taking people out one by one and the tension rising as they're trying to figure out what's going on and what to do and how to deal with it. But this was an interesting watch. I'm glad to have seen it at least once. So that's thanks to Carson. Thank you so much for that. And again, I can see why people were impressed, especially back then when this came out. So credit to the people who, the technical people that was involved with this. So with that said, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys later.